kill you and everybody you love.
Yours truly, Brevin Thompson, is back, and since I'm continuing on with my Spider-Man reviews, of course I brought back my good friend Cameron with me. Since we wrapped up our reviews for both the Sam Raimi trilogy as well as the Mark Webb films, it only made sense that we jumped into the MCU with Spider-Man Homecoming. And then, right before this film even came out, let's jump a little bit back to Captain America Civil War, which is where we first encounter Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Well, my first experience, first seeing Tom Holland Spider-Man in Civil War, I mean, when I first saw the trailer, I could not believe my eyes seeing Spider-Man into the MCU, especially after the failure of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was definitely not amazing in a lot of people's eyes. So it's good to see that Disney and Sony are working together to kickstart Spider-Man again and bringing him into the MCU. And that just put a huge smile on my face to see Spider-Man into the MCU, interacting with all these other superheroes that we've come to know and love for years. It just made sense to add him in here, because I cannot think of a better choice than that, honestly.
Yeah, I personally couldn't agree more, and to me, Tom Holland is, without a shadow of a doubt, the pretty much physical embodiment of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Whereas the other guys only got like one side or the other right. I think this guy is able to do both sides, and he truly is the genuine article.
Yeah, I would say so too. But one thing that I do respect the filmmakers doing when it came to Homecoming and especially Civil War is that they don't really redo Spider-Man's origin story, because I'm pretty sure at that point we were all pretty much familiar with it, because, I mean, he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, Uncle Ben gets shot, he learns with great power comes great responsibility, and becomes Spider-Man. So we're pretty much familiar with that at this point, but we thought that, okay, since he's in the MCU, are they going to redo it? No, they don't.
Yeah, and I'm truly glad that they don't, because like Brevin said, and I agree, that we don't necessarily need to go down that path again, and Disney realized that. So instead, and this time they made it like a really interesting story, because they took out of the equation the one thing Tom Holland's predecessors, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, both shared, which was an origin story. Because by now we're already supposed to know how Spider-Man came to be, so instead of another origin story, they include him as a small role in the Captain America Civil War film, and then give him a solo film series later.
Yeah, but what we got in Civil War was just perfect, in my opinion, because, I mean, I can't think of a good introduction to Spider-Man than what we see in the airport fight in Civil War, because that alone is worth the price of admission alone, because, I mean, seeing that in IMAX back in 2016, I was like, good God, this was just incredible. And Tom Holland, I do think, is the best Spider-Man that we've had since Tobey Maguire, and for all I care, I can watch him play Spider-Man until he's fucking 50 at this point, because he's perfect as this character. It's perfect casting, and he does such an amazing job, because I'm glad that they actually gave us a Spider-Man who actually feels like a kid. Something that we never really had at this point, if you really think about it.
Not to mention actually looks like a 15-year-old kid from Queens, because a lot of the guys before, they pretty much, I think you could say, were more or less full-grown adults by the time they took on the mantle. But at the same time, even though Tom Holland is an adult, he actually looks like a 15-year-old kid from Queens, and that to me is just mind-boggling. I mean, if you look at him, he really doesn't look like an adult. He actually looks like a 15-year-old Peter Parker.
Yeah, he does pretty good. I mean, like I said, it's perfect casting.
And personally, I thought it was pretty interesting at one point. I found out that when Tom Holland was cast, they said that he was once a fan of both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions of Spider-Man before taking up the mantle himself. So I find that to be quite poetic, wouldn't you say?
I definitely find that very poetic, and to see him as Spider-Man now, and I think that, like I said, he does a terrific job. So this film kind of has like two openings. Mostly with the first opening, I mean, we see like the aftermath of the Battle of New York and the Avengers. I mean, we see Adrian Toomes played by Michael Keaton. And speaking of Michael Keaton, I think for the most part that's pretty good casting, having Michael Keaton play the Vulture in this film, because you kind of sympathize with him, you understand his motivations and why he's upset, and as a villain, he works, and he's one of my personal favorite villains in the MCU. He got screwed over by Tony Stark, unintentionally, of course, because everything that he's doing throughout the film, he's just trying to support himself as well as his family, and you do have some sympathy for him, but still, I mean, I do think that he's pretty good as that character. And this guy played Batman back then, and seeing him as Vulture years later, just like, I mean, how can you not have Michael Keaton turn down? I mean, how can you not have Michael Keaton not turn down a comic book role? I mean, it would be like, it would just be off, you know. It's just, and right now I can't really picture anybody else playing that character. I mean, it's just perfect, and I really can't wait to see what he does as Batman again in the Flash movie, and that's a whole different other story. So
What are you? I'm Batman.
But the second opening I really love. We see Peter with his cell phone, like, recording everything that he's doing. I mean, going to his trip in Berlin, which is, of course, I mean, leading up to the airport fighting Civil War. We see him get his new suit, and his interactions with Happy Hogan, played again by Jon Favreau, is just great. And we see him even, like, recording parts of the battle in the airport in Civil War, and he's just perfect. I mean, having Tom Holland, who was in his 20s, playing a 15-year-old kid, is just really convincing. I mean, it's such great acting. And I love the interactions between him and Tony Stark, played masterfully by Robert Downey Jr. And like I mentioned in my review for Iron Man, when it comes to Robert Downey Jr., that is Iron Man, because he's perfect as that character. I mean, it's hard to imagine seeing anybody else play Iron Man other than Robert Downey Jr., because you can't outmatch Robert Downey Jr. You just can't.
Yeah, and I personally would both like to agree with what Brevin says regarding Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, but to me, I used to think that Tobey Maguire was the embodiment of Spider-Man, and at the time he was, and to me he will always be the original. But at the same time, I always kind of thought growing up that Tobey Maguire made a better Peter Parker, Andrew Garfield kind of made a better Spider-Man, and
Well, Tom Holland, you felt were like, I mean, he's perfect as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
yeah, like he kind of combines the two or something, and to me, I honestly just cannot see anyone else, like, for at least a really long time, like, being Peter Parker and Spider-Man more than Tom Holland. I mean, he really is the embodiment of the character, just as Robert Downey Jr. is with Iron Man.
They're just perfect.
Yeah.
And when it comes to their relationship, I mean, it works, because I heard, like, a lot of people saying that he's basically the MCU Spider-Man's version of Peter Parker. And in a way, he kinda is. I mean, well, he's more of a mentor for Peter's duties as Spider-Man. And after the events of Civil War, I mean, Peter is, like, desperate to prove himself and wanting to become a member of the Avengers, and Tony's like, nope, you're not ready yet. And Peter is just so desperate to prove himself. And this film really, like, does a good job, but not as, like, perfectly as Spider-Man 2 does, of, like, showing how Peter is trying to, like, balance his normal life, this time as a high school student, and with his superhero duties as Spider-Man, because we see him, I mean, he's, like, desperate just to get out of class and just do his Spider-Man thing. And I really like that they really capture the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man aspects that, I mean, we hear his, like, one of his nicknames being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I like that they capture that because, I mean, in the montage, I mean, we see, like, Spider-Man, like, stopping bike thieves and giving old people directions and stuff like that. It's just, the stuff like that, I mean, just the small things. And speaking of small things, the stakes are relatively lower compared to, like, most Spider-Man films, and especially other films that are mostly set in the MCU, because when you think of stakes, I mean, mostly they're high because you normally have, like, some alien overlord or some god or some robot that's threatening to blow up the earth or something. But no, they keep the stakes lower for this film because, as, like, Tony said to Peter, he said, just stay close to the ground. And this film kind of does as well. So I can respect the filmmakers for trying to do something different.
While at the same time, I think we can also both agree, pay homage to both what the character is all about and possibly some of the, like, more higher aspects at times to that the other films had. But, you know, but because it's like his first film and they've been at this for a long time, we want to try to tread carefully and then amp up the stakes late.
Yeah. Something else that this film improves upon is the humor, especially in one scene where Spider-Man is trying to stop a bank robbery, because we see these bank robbers in Avengers masks stealing money from ATMs out using this alien technology, and this entire scene alone is just hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, he's just sitting there by the bank, like, opening, and he goes, "What's up? Hey, you're the Avengers. I mean, it's nice to finally meet you guys. I thought you'd be taller." And then, like,
it's just so hilarious. I think that this, well, he's not quite as quippy. I mean, the quips are there, but I mean, they don't, like, go like overloading on that because because you still have to have, like, Spider-Man be, like, a little bit less cocky. He is cocky in some way, but still, I mean, I still think that Tom Holland does a good job.
Yeah, that's pretty much the main problem I think I had with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, because he was good 98% of the time, in my opinion, especially for when I was a kid. But I always kind of felt like, as I probably mentioned in some of my other, like, reviews with Brevin, that he was kind of more like a more serious kind of Spider-Man. Didn't really have as many quips as Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. Most of the time he just had, like, one or two, like, jokes, and that was
it. Yeah.
But this guy really, I think, delivers it just pretty much perfectly.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know a single person out there that would look at this kid in action, that is, and say he's not Spider-Man.
Yeah,
really.
And what I like about this this version of Peter Parker, he actually has friends. Yeah. I mean, we have, like, Ned, who eventually becomes the guy in the chair, which is kind of what I respect in some way. And throughout the film, he's, like, the only other person in Peter's life who knows that he's Spider-Man. Yeah.
How they met on that front, that was hilarious. I mean, Peter's just coming home in his Spider-Man suit because his backpack with his clothes got stolen. And then when he comes through the window, he comes down to the floor. Ned's there with his mouth open and the Death Star they were going to make in hand. in his hand, and he just drops it and it shatters to the floor.
He was like, I thought we were gonna make the Death Star. It's just perfect, and he keeps asking him like all these like weird questions. He's like, can you lay eggs? Can you spit venom or something like that?
No. And for those of you that probably have noticed that they don't really talk about Uncle Ben much.
Yeah, like they kind of hint at it because I'm like Peter's like, don't tell Aunt May because I mean she's already been through too much. I mean they hint at it, but he's not directly mentioned.
Yeah, we get to move past that part of Peter's life, and we get to see a new aspect.
Yeah, because we've been there and done that, and we really don't want to go there again.
Yeah, and I know that as meaningful as it is, I know there's probably a lot of people out there that agree it's just not worth going through again.
So, Peter finds out that one of his classmates, Liz, has a massive crush on Spider-Man, and I like how Ned just blurts out that he knows about Spider-Man, and Peter's, of course, completely embarrassed by it, and so they're invited to Liz's party, and of course, Peter's considering like showing up as Spider-Man, but then of course, I mean, he gets interrupted doing his Spider-Man duties because I mean, there's an arms deal going on with these thugs who work for the Vulture, like selling alien tech to Aaron Davis, who in the comics is, I mean, he's Prowler and as well as Miles Morales' uncle, which he does mention that he does have a nephew, so they could like. I think this is supposed to, like, eventually set up Miles coming into the MCU, but we're not entirely, like, 100% sure if that's even going to happen, so...
And even if it does, I just want to say that the fact that Miles is here is... If it really is him, of course, because they only say he's got a nephew.
So a chase ensues with Spider-Man chasing Shocker and other guy who eventually becomes a Shocker, who is Herman Schultz. And this leads to his first encounter with the Vulture, and of course it doesn't go well for him. And I like this brief little interaction between him and Iron Man, even though he's not there in his suit and he's controlling it through these glasses, which is kind of hilarious because he's all the way in India. He's like, I'm not actually here because you better be grateful that this place has Wi-Fi or you'd be toast right now.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Yeah, but he's just telling him, just stay out of it, just leave this to the professionals, and... then he just leaves, and we don't really see him again until like later in the movie.
What happens next, in my opinion, is very interesting. When Peter finds that piece of alien equipment, I guess you could say, probably Chitauri or something.
Yeah, some type of Chitauri equipment, because I mean they're like mixing like alien technology with their own technology, so they can like create weapons for themselves.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff, really. But when Peter finds it, I think it's pretty interesting what they decided to do. The guys realized that some of their equipment went missing, so they decided to go to the high school to get it back. And then, after narrowly escaping detection by pretty much using his powers to hide under one of the science lab's tables, Peter basically sticks a spider tracer onto one of the guys with his web shooter and uses it to track him all the way to
Maryland?
Yeah, Maryland. Yeah. And he realizes that's too far away from where they are, but it's not too far away from where they're going.
Which is DC.
Right.
Yeah.
For the American Decathlon. So he asks to rejoin the team and is welcomed back with open arms. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And since he finds out that that Tony can like track him wherever he goes because there's a tracker in his suit, he has Ned hack the suit while Peter removes the tracker, and I like that Peter has his own AI, Karen, for his suit. Voiced by Jennifer Connelly, which is a good addition. But in case you all don't know, she's married to Paul Bettany, who is the voice of Jarvis right before he becomes Vision. I do think that's a really nice touch.
Yeah, I personally was surprised when Brevin told me that. I honestly didn't know that was her, but I thought it was rather fitting. Tony gets Jarvis, he gets the person, I guess, that turns out to be the actor's wife.
Yeah, and I like that his AI Karen like adds like a bit of comedy, like choosing like his various types of like web. I mean, how his web shooters function is just like and even the instant kill mode. He's like, no, I don't want to kill anybody. Deactivating instant kill, which is so hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, there's like just so many different web shooter combinations. According to Karen, Peter has 576 possible web shooter combinations.
But he's like, yeah, Tony just overdid it.
Yeah, really. Yeah. It is awesome.
Yeah, so he has another encounter with the Vulture since he's trying to pull off another heist. Of course, it doesn't go well, and since like one of those cues that like that can allow like the Vulture to like phase through stuff. I mean, they're knocked over, and I like how Spider-Man accidentally knocks himself out, and he ends up in damage control headquarters. He's like, I gotta get out of here. And then he finds out that one of the Chitauri cores is like similar to like the one that he and Ned had, and he's like, this entire time we've been carrying around a bomb. So yeah, they go to the Washington Monument, and of course the core explodes, and then I like how like Peter is like climbing up the monument as fast as possible, just trying to get there in time so he can save his friends. Yeah. And he's like so high because he's never been that high before, and I like how he's like trying to like conquer his fear of heights while trying to like save his friends at the same time, and thankfully he does. And right after he saves his friends, I thought that they were gonna like redo the upside down kiss. I mean, because even Karen's like, this is your chance, kiss Liz, and I thought that they were gonna do that, but they were like, nope. We've been there, done that. And I kind of like that because I'm like, we're pretty much familiar with that at this point, and it was kind of hilarious at the same time. So after all of that happens, Peter decides to track down Aaron Davis and interrogate him using advanced interrogation mode, and the voice that they chose for this mode, the best I can describe it is The Rock if he was high and using the voice of Darth Vader. That's the best way that I could put it. Yeah. It's kind of hilarious. Even Aaron Davis is not intimidated by his voice whatsoever. It's just like, it's just like, you sound like a girl. He's like, it's just,
he thought Spider-Man sounded like a girl in his normal voice, but he's really a man.
Yeah.
but the enhanced interrogation mode was quite serious, but it also was kind of funny.
Yeah, so anyways, I mean, he gives him like the location of like where Vulture and his cronies are, so Spider-Man tracks him to a ferry, and of course things go haywire, and after another battle with the Vulture, I mean, he like webs up like one of his he webs up one of his weapons, and it causes like the blast to like split the ferry in half. And I like what Peter tries to like pull off, like bouncing between walls and just like webbing everything, and it's just so amazing. I remember seeing that in like so many commercials and trailers, and I was just like, that is incredible. And of course we get that like one moment of just like him like holding on to like two different webs, just trying to pull it together. I was like, are they trying to like top the train scene from Spider-Man 2? I was like, if they were really gonna do that, then I don't know. But then, of course, Iron Man shows up to fix Peter's mistake and save the day, and he like has like these little drones that like help him like push the fairies together and then like uh, laser them up and just like seal it shut. And I'm just like, okay, that's good. But of course, Tony's like completely pissed at Peter. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna need the suit back.
Yeah, and he basically was pretty upset because he actually listened to what Peter had to say about all this. He called the FBI that were going to arrest them when the deal went down, and they would have succeeded if he hadn't messed it up. And then after all that, he even said that after all that, he was the only one who believed him. He says, "All right, it's not working out. I'm gonna need the suit back." And he goes, "For how long? Forever."
And yeah, and I like how like Peter's like, no, I need the suit. I'm nothing without it. He's like, and Tony tells him, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. Yeah, which kind of like comes into play like later in the film with one very a pretty good scene, which we'll get to in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, Tony's pretty pissed at Peter, so he takes his suit. He's just like, you're done. So after all of that, Peter goes back to being a normal high school student, and when it comes to that, I mean, things are going pretty well for him, and even asks Liz to come with them for the homecoming dance, and it turns out to be pretty good, until the plot twist card comes up, and I'll leave this to Cameron.
Goes up to the door.
And who is behind the door? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Adrian Toomes.
That is right, folks.
Yeah.
Liz's dad is the Vulture.
Yeah. I think she was supposed to be like Liz Allen from the comics. Another like high school girl that I think Peter had a crush on at one point or something. But the fact that she was made related to Toomes to me really was kind of a complete it was unbelievable.
Yeah. And when it comes to this, like the scene with Peter, Liz, and Toomes in the car, I mean, like them going back and forth on certain things, and especially when it comes to the moments where like Toomes is putting two together and eventually finding out that Peter is Spider-Man. There's one moment where that I don't think like a lot of people like realize is the film's choice in colors, and especially when Toomes is, I mean, when he stops his car, the light is on red, so it's on stop. I mean, the light is glowing on his face. That's Spider-Man's colors. Mm-hmm. And when it goes to green, when it's going go, those are Vulture's colors. So I was like, I'm glad that they like try to do something with colors in this film. Yeah. And I really like the moments of like Vulture putting two and two together and finding out that Peter is Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, first time I saw that scene in theaters, sent a chill down my spine as soon as he figured it out, because Michael Keaton, he can be very intimidating, as we all know from his days in Batman, but I mean, really, that was just top level right there.
Yeah, but it was his dad talk that he was going to give Peter. I mean, that's what he tells Liz. I mean, he's like, you go on, honey. I'm going to give Peter the dad talk.
Yeah, and he basically finally understands that Peter is Spider-Man, and he pretty much is like just threatening him, telling him to stop. But at the same time, he realizes that he did save his daughter when the Jatari energy core kind of blew up and the Washington Monument collapsed. So he decided to give him one last chance and a choice to make. He basically goes back to the dance, gives his daughter a good time, and never interferes with his family, with his affairs again, or he would kill every single person that he loved. After he thanks him, he goes in, gets to talk with Liz for a sec. He says he's sorry and she deserves better than this. So he runs out and decides to go face Vulture in his homemade suit, and Shocker's waiting for him. And I thought that that was a very interesting choice he made. I mean,
Yeah, because I mean, just finding out that his girlfriend's dad is the Vulture, and I mean he knows that. I mean, still, I mean he's faced with like a really difficult choice. He chooses to go after Vulture, and like you said, he puts on his homemade suit since he doesn't have the suit that Stark gave him. And of course, he has like a brief fight with Shocker, and I do like that Ned like helps him out in this one scene, like using his web shooter. And I'm just like, yes, I'm glad that Peter has someone watching his back. And another moment which is priceless to me is Peter driving Flash's car. That is just...
Yeah,
that is priceless.
Yeah, I mean, he steals Flash's car and uses it to try to chase Toomes before he gets away. And it's just hilarious. He's never driven before, only with Aunt May in parking lots.
When it comes to, like, him, like, finally facing Toomes, I love the dialogue in this confrontation is pretty brilliant. And like I said, you do understand Toomes' motivations and why he is angry at Tony Stark. And this one moment where he like has his wings like destroying like various pillars, he's like, "I'm sorry, Peter," and Peter's like, "What are you talking about? That thing doesn't even touch me." He's like, "True. Then again, wasn't really trying to." And he has like this entire building just collapse on top of Peter. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, that is just brutal even for him. Really.
Yeah, and it leads to, like, quite possibly the best scene in the film, in my opinion. We see, like, Peter, like, stuck under all of this debris, and he's, like, even with all his strength, he even goes so far as to, like, trying to call for help. I mean, he's so desperate. I mean, this is a kid, and he reflects on what Tony told him, and he's like, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. And then with all of his strength, he gains the confidence to just lift all of the debris off, and that is just amazing. And this kind of homages what happens at one point in the comics, and that is another iconic moment from the comics. It feels like it was ripped straight off of the page.
Yeah, there's definitely a few moments that look pretty similar to that scene.
So Vulture is trying to hijack Tony Stark's private plane, like moving all this equipment to like a new Avengers facility at upstate, and with all the equipment, I mean, this is like his biggest heist. So of course Spider-Man interferes, and when it comes to this fight, I mean, it makes it feel. I mean, it kind of like amps up the stakes for Spider-Man, and even at like one point where he like webs up a turbine, and he was lucky that the web webbed up the turbine engine, and otherwise it would have turned him into shredded cheese.
Yeah, but for me, I don't see that necessarily. You see, some people might look at that scene and probably say, like, plot armor or whatever.
Not really, yeah. And for the most part, in most of this fight, especially when they're on a beach near Coney Island, Peter is really having a hard time, and he gets his ass kicked throughout most of this fight.
Yeah.
But not as, like, in the same level as, like, during his, like, final fight with the Green Goblin in the first Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that one is hard to top.
Vulture is trying to like steal like this huge crate full of arc reactors, and Spider-Man realizes that his wingsuit is about to explode since it has suffered so much damage. And Vulture doesn't want to listen, and of course his wingsuit explodes, but he survives, and Spider-Man saves him. And what happens next later in the mid-credit scene, we'll get to that in a second. Well, after all that, Liz leaves with her mom to go to Oregon, and then we get Happy picking up Peter, and Tony congratulates Peter for taking down Vulture and eventually proving himself worthy to become an Avenger. And what I like about this, Peter Parker turns down Tony Stark's offer to become a member of the Avengers, and he kind of like follows Tony's advice to stay close to the ground, staying as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because throughout the film, he's trying to prove himself that he is ready and worthy of becoming an Avenger, and Tony's like, you are not ready. And even it wasn't really until the end of the film where he realizes that he's not quite there yet.
Yeah. He recognizes, I think, that he had the potential to become an Avenger, but I guess, like Brevin said, he just didn't feel comfortable moving up to that level just yet. And that's really saying a lot on his part.
What happens right before right before the mid credits is priceless. Just as Peter stealing Flash's car, but this moment can top that. So he finds that Tony left behind his suit. He puts it on, and he doesn't realize that Aunt May has been watching them the entire time. She's like, "What the?" And
yeah, seriously, when I first saw that part in theaters, that to me was like a genuine surprise on every level.
Yeah, that I was laughing my ass off. And that's the first time having Aunt May in a live-action film discovering that her nephew is Spider-Man. Yeah. But in the mid-credit scene, it's really interesting because we see Toomes in prison and he bumps into Mac Gargan, who we saw earlier in the film. He tells him that he has some friends on the outside who are wanting to kill Spider-Man. He's like, you know who he is, don't you? But instead of giving him Spider-Man's identity, he's like, if I knew who he was, he'd already be dead. Because despite the fact that Toomes was a criminal, he at least had a code. Deep down, he's an honorable person. So it was kind of like his way of saying thank you to Peter for saving his life, which I did think was a nice touch. But overall, when it comes to Spider-Man Homecoming, it's a great film. It's a great Spider-Man film, has a great actor to play Spider-Man with Tom Holland, a great villain with, when you have Michael Keaton playing as the Vulture, great humor, great action sequences, great visuals, great humor, really good writing, and a good direction from John Watts. And I do think that he's a really good director. If you have not managed to see this, I definitely recommend that you should, especially if you are a fan of Spider-Man. So yeah, that's definitely my best recommendation for you. So I'm going to give Spider-Man Homecoming an A-. So what do y'all think of Spider-Man Homecoming? Let me know in the comments below, and I want to give a big thank you to Cameron for supporting me while making this video, as well as my other Spider-Man videos. Really looking forward to talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon, and if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.